an American where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up.
Welcome, Brian Lewis, our judicial candidate for District Court 11, Judge Seat 3. Appreciate you coming online with us. I know you've been spending the day out campaigning and meeting and greeting people, so I'll try and keep the questions clear and concise. But if you could go ahead and introduce yourself to the district, we'd appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jesse. And as you just said, my name is Brian Lewis. I'm running for District Court Judge position in Seat 3, and appreciate everybody's votes. Just to give you a quick summation, if you haven't looked at my website to get a little bit of my background, I was in the military for 24 years. Before that, I was a Parker's Barbecue waiter in Wilson County for about 6 months after high school, when I realized, okay, I need some education. I used the military to do that, got my bachelor's degree while I was in, and then I also applied and became a C-130 navigator, allowing me to, for the last 10 years of my career, fly right around here, as well as serving our country in combat over in Iraq, some in Afghanistan, some in the next to Europe when we had wars in the, it's not the Middle East, the Balkan states. But after that, they wanted me to move away from this local area, and I love where I live here in Harnett County, Carolina Lakes. A little shout out there for the neighborhood. So they told me I had to leave. I said, nope, 24 years is quite enough time for someone to give, being away from their family, serving our country. So I retired, and being a worker, I decided I would go to law school over the age of 40. And after doing that, I knew I'd always had an interest in being a prosecutor. So I pursued that, was able to get hired right out of law school. For the last 9 years, that's what I've been doing, serving our community, serving victims in cases, as well as serving our community as a whole in drug cases and other matters where conservative Christian values are an important determination on how those cases get handled. That's a little bit about me. I think you also wanted me to address why I want to be a district court judge. I believe that our judges in the country have become a little what I define as liberal. The seat that I'm running for is an open seat, so I'm not particularly talking about an incumbent or anything else. I'm just addressing the seat that I'm running for. I think we need to make more strides in making sure that we have people with strong conservative backgrounds that believe in strong bonds that protect our citizens, as well as someone with an experience in domestic violence as a prosecutor. Did that for the first part of my career, and dealt with thousands of victims, those complicated cases. District court judges make some of the most important decisions about families. They decide divorce, they decide bonds, when in any criminal case, whether someone's going to stay in jail or not, to make a reasonable bond that's determined on whether the person's a risk to safety to our community, which allows a judge to increase that bond to make sure that they take it more seriously. But that's part of why I'm running, to try and help our bench. So what's the next question? Oh,
well, as you were discussing the role of the judges and whatnot, you kind of segued right into my next question, which was going to be to explain kind of what a judge does and the job of a judge. But since you already kind of touched on that, what I'd like to ask about is, what rulings do you believe have an impact on communities, and how do you think that judges' ruling will impact the people around, that are being either seeing it, right, and getting ideas of what they can do and not do, or instilling faith in the system, or deteriorating faith in the system. I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on that.
Well, as we spoke earlier, and I didn't allude to it, or it didn't come up earlier, that judges' decisions about and how society sees what's going on and what they're able to do. I'm interpreting that from you, that you're talking about maybe the riots that go on and people's consequences from those riots.
So I'm just curious as to your opinions as to a judge's decisions or their rulings, how that impacts the community writ large.
I mean, it has huge impacts. Again, that goes back to why from the beginning of my campaign, I've always said it's important for people when they vote for a judge that they have had some contact with them, or someone that they trust has had contact with them and they felt they were treated fairly. Our court systems are inundated with cases, and it's hard sometimes for a judge to always explain why they made certain decisions. And as a prosecutor, I've learned sometimes there's no amount of explanation that would bring someone into understanding completely why a decision was made the way it was. It's sad, but part of that goes back to something I would have alluded to earlier, civil discourse that we have in this country or don't have. Sometimes two different people are going to see facts and have completely different ideas based off of how they were brought up, and also how they at a subconscious level are interpreting how that would apply to them in some way in their lives. In other words, do they have a personal interest? And I found through my experiences on being on a board and just as a prosecutor, people get very upset when they're interpreting that in some way this has a direct impact on them or could. People got very upset when they saw the BLM riots because they're like, this could be my house. This could be where I'm at. And it's scary. But at the same time, if they've never seen it near them, they may rationalize and say, oh, that never happened here. We have good police here that would protect us. We have things that would prevent that. So then they get less upset. So again, it all boils down to whoever the individual is and their personal experiences, and then how they interpret a decision being made that could possibly have affected them. And that's very broad.
Sure.
But like I said, until you see it personally, and we had this in Fayetteville, we had riots. We had the Market house that got burned down. We had the Walmart that was trashed. And in Fayetteville, lots of people were charged. I had cases that I pled for people committing those larcenies when they were in there. Did they take complete responsibility? Probably not. But most criminal cases, I will tell you, people are given chances. But I will say that what I've learned through this campaign process, that is one thing that a lot of regular hardworking people that never have any involvement in the criminal system are upset about, that people are allowed to get so many chances.
Right.
Before they have some serious consequences. And by serious consequences, I mean, you're actually going to prison.
Right.
That's a small number. Now, again, people on the other side of that have family members that are in prison would go, oh, that's not true. My person never did anything. Well, every fact and circumstance is a little different.
Sure.
And I alluded to it earlier, and I know we lost that recording and we're going to re-record it. So hopefully when I allude to things I said earlier, I remember to say them when we record it. That's where I'm at now. Look down at your question, see if I'm giving you any answer on that, or if you.
No, you are. And again, I mean, there's no right or wrong to this, because at the end of the day, it's about just understanding who you are. And all I'm trying to do is ask questions that that I've, based off of conversations I've had with the people, to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and how you're going to legislate, or I'm sorry, make your rulings from the bench. So, I appreciate the responses and the candor and the openness. So, if you could maybe expand on this same topic and just provide briefly maybe one example of a ruling that had a really positive outcome for the community and maybe a ruling where it had a really negative impact?
It's very broad because again,
I'm trying, just so you know, I am trying to maintain broadness so that I don't,
right.
like you said, I'm not trying to pin you into a corner. That's not the goal here. So I am trying to keep it broad, but I understand that that may make it a little bit difficult.
Well, and many of the things people see in the news, as well as I do. I mean, someone that, as a prosecutor, I work 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. So I don't have as much time when I get home to watch the local news, to interact with things that are outside of my direct seeing things, plus and minus. Now at a national level, you see, like you alluded to earlier about the riots or the, some would say protest at the Capitol. Others would define it as riots at the Capitol. And then you have individuals that are being charged for walking around and people being upset about that. And then it being politicized. Just like I was alluding to a minute ago, and I think this was recorded when we talked about the riots in the Walmart at Fayetteville, people breaking in. And basically they were just committing theft. There was no, and again, many of them, and there were actual comments made by activists that said, oh, this is part of reparations. And I just, it's upsetting to me that someone could think that's even an appropriate thing to say when you take belongings. And again, lots of people want to point fingers, oh, that's just a corporation, that's Walmart. Well, Walmart provides a service so that we have a place to buy things at a reasonable price. Now, depending again on your perspective on whether you have that available to you and whether that's dried up your buy local type people in the small niche stores, you might be fine with Walmart being terrorized. It's difficult for people to equate to an insurance company or a Walmart to having losses, but it does affect all of us. It affects the price of the things that we have. It also affects our safety and security. If folks are allowed to tear up other people's things, even if that's a corporation, it affects me wanting to go out. It makes me scared that people can just be destructive. No one likes that. So decisions that were made, and I know there were cases in Durham where they tore down statues and cases were dismissed or found not guilty when it's on video that they tore down a statue. And the excuse was that, well, they're just angry because of all the oppression that goes on in this country. Systemic racism, and that term is thrown around a lot and used as an excuse. And it's a very complex issue. And I don't want to get into it because, again, when it comes to judges and theories of cases and whether they agree or disagree, that's why you'd have a difficult time getting even a Supreme Court justice to discuss their opinions on things, because again, that would then be used against them later to say, oh, you either believe X or you believe Y. And because of that, you can't be in a decision position. We need judges that have grounded basis, aren't overly political in their beliefs, that make it to where they are legislating from the bench. The laws, and more importantly, the reason the law was put in place, which goes back to whether you're an originalist or whether you think that the Constitution is something that lives and breathes. I'm an originalist, and I know that our founding fathers used their experiences and what they saw when England was terrorizing as a king, letting people have freedom. And it was about control. And people don't realize when we point blame and at individuals and things to try and tear down systems like less police, defunding the police, most people with common sense knows that's problematic. Defunding police means less officers.
Right.
If someone's problem is they think there are some bad officers, address those bad officers. Don't say we need less officers, because I guarantee you, if you get less officers, often it's the good officers that leave first.
Right.
So you're just making the problems worse.
Right.
So, but anyway.
Well, I appreciate
pontificate here.
No, that's great. And again, I mean, like I said, you know, I'm not trying to pin anyone into a corner, but as we've discussed, judges hold a massive amount of authority and power, and you know, it just seems as though we should have the ability to talk about things and get to know someone and understand what their thought process is, regardless of what it might do down in the long term, because you do want to wield a lot of authority over the people that you're going to be in charge of and overseeing.
Yes, district court judges, superior court judges have huge authority. Anyone that can put someone in jail is an unbelievable amount of authority.
Absolutely.
Basically, if someone comes into court and they won't listen to directions, a judge from the bench can say, you're in contempt, you're in custody, you're going to spend the night in jail. That is the ultimate authority in our society. It is the ultimate suspension of your freedoms. And that can all happen based off of you, in the person that's going to jail, believing that all they're doing is exerting their freedom of speech. So that is something, and most of the judges I've seen that have done that were very patient with the person. Mm-hmm. But the court system does have to move forward. So there are times that it is necessary that your disruption of the process cannot be allowed. There's a point. I mean, even Gandhi and people that followed that type of mindset of disruption, their point wasn't that I shouldn't go to jail for what I've done. It was because I'm in jail, it brings public attention to what's going on. Mm-hmm. But these individuals that want to tear down our society with no costs to themselves, but yet getting the attention, seems to me a little not genuine. They want all the benefits of acting out and being destructive, but don't want any of the consequences.
Right. Well, and we're getting close to our cap on time here, so I do appreciate the conversation. And before we close out, I just wanted to ask one last question, which is if you could just maybe in a minute or two, why you want to be a judge. I mean, obviously you spent a lot of time in the military, you have a distinguished career there, you spent time as a prosecutor, you've got a distinguished career there. What is it that makes you want to be a judge now, and what do you hope to accomplish if you're elected?
I want to be a judge because we need more judges on the bench that have the kind of background and belief system that I have. My belief system has been brought up over a long period of time, the 24 years in the military, the 3 years in law school, the 9 years as a prosecutor. And that's after growing up in a small town, Wilson, North Carolina, working hard. That kind of background, seeing the world during my military career, Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, the Middle East, having broad experiences, and also having 5 children, being raised on Christian values. I believe sometimes it even helps me, although it is the most painful thing in my life, losing a child, has given me deep understanding of tragedies in people's lives, and being able to listen and understand where people on both sides of an argument that would come in front of me are going to come from. They're going to want to have someone that they feel is going to listen to them, and I will. I get concerned that we have an outside influence of our criminal defense bar on the judges that are getting picked. They spend a lot of money trying to get the word out on who they think should be on the bench. They're not supporting me at all. And I think part of that is they're a little worried about my prosecution background, that I may bring the court systems when it comes to criminal cases a little closer to conservative values as opposed to liberal values. And I'm hoping that I can convince enough people to get out to the polls to vote for Brian Lewis to be district court judge. And I think they'll be very happy with some of the possible changes. Our officers, when they bring cases, it's never lightly. I've met many officers. I've never had the feeling that any of them, that all they were concerned about was locking people up and throwing them to the ground. They live in our communities. They want our communities safe. And when they come across someone that's been drinking and driving, they're doing their best to protect that individuals and the rest of us. When they come across a situation where a woman is called, or even sometimes a child, 8, 9, 10-year-old gets on the phone and say, mommy and daddy are fighting, and it's a dangerous situation. Domestic violence cases are very dangerous to our officers. When they come out to a scene, they don't know if they're going to be in a situation where it's a murder-suicide with a person that has lost their rational thoughts about people that they're supposed to love, which I'm talking about domestic violence cases, which is my biggest area of experiences as a prosecutor. My first 4 years of the 9 were heavily involved with handling those complex cases. I want someone on the bench that understands the victim's perspectives, not an oversized influence from the defense bar.
Sure.
So,
well, how can people get a hold of you? People that want to learn more about yourself and your campaign and your candidacy. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I've got my website out there that they can read a little bit about my career at votebrianlewis.com. I've also posted my personal cell phone, 910-286-0694. They can reach out. Now, obviously, I'll have limited time. I'm trying to post events that I go to. I'm in Johnson County. In fact, after this, I'm going to go to Johnson County to be there during the lunch, the conservative coffee, to try and meet people. But I find most people that I'm hoping to vote for me, which is in the Republican primary, they work. They'd love to be able to take a snapshot and get a feel for someone, which everyone that I've talked to, I feel like they believe in me. And I have no doubt in my heart that I'm the better candidate. And if they met me and the person I'm running against, that they'd vote for me. Now, I have some folks, again, they were all defense attorneys, that said, well, we've dedicated to support the other person. So take that for however you like.
Sure.
I need the support of the people that want conservative Christian values that are going to give the state a fair chance at putting on their evidence. And again, this is an open seat, so I'm not going against somebody that's on the bench right now. This is just, we need more of that on the bench.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you running for this position. And you know, when I took over as the chairman, I had stated that there were 3 priorities that we need to focus on as a county, and they were the school system, securing our elections, and ensuring that we have proper judges elected to hold office. So once again, thank you for stepping up to the job and putting your name in the ring and letting everyone get a chance to get to see who you are and opening yourself up like this. I know it's not something that most people want to do. So very much appreciated that you're willing to step up into that role. All right, Brian. Thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you more throughout the campaign trail, and good luck to you in the primaries.
We got less than a week before, a little over a week. Next Thursday is when folks can go out to the polls. So hopefully they will do that. And then they have up until May 17th. And then it'll be decided. I'll either be on the bench or I won't. But I'll go back to being a prosecutor. So
there you go. There's always a future. All righty. Thank you again, Brian.
Super. Thanks.
And I'm proud to be an American.